Mark Firehammer, good morning.
Good morning, Adnan. So good to be here with you.
So good to be here with you. I am really excited to hear and dive into this exciting project that has been, 40 years in the making?
Pretty much, I started writing songs in the 80s, and I always thought of myself as born 10 years too late for the music industry because they already had James Taylor and Jim Croce and, all those singer-songwriters. But I always thought of myself as more of a bard in the old tradition of the oral tradition of telling stories and making sure that things were passed along. So yeah, 40 years in the making, and this first record is interesting because I never did country music.
Mm,
But country music tells stories of life and the passages and the rites of passage. And
mm.
you've listened to the tracks, right?
I have, and
Yeah.
I have to say, I'm not a fan of country music,
Yeah.
but two of the tracks specifically, just like were this, I would listen to this.
Yeah.
I would totally listen to this. And so for me, it was not about the actual um, music genre. It was about the feeling that I got from listening to this piece of work, to this piece of art.
Yeah. I'm willing to guess, given that you're a dad and you're a husband, that it was one of those ones, Lonely in Love with You, or I Won't Stop Loving You, or I Do Because I Love You, something like that.
I did like those, but I have to say my dancer part in me was the one that was really excited about uptime music.
Oh,
Uptime music.
yes. Yes. I love
That
that you
one
love
just
that. I performed
that
that song live on the Charles Perez show in an episode. I was in New York at the time, in an episode called Street Performers and Their Friends Who Think They're Nuts. And it was so much fun. I had my roommate and an actress friend, Marianne Ryan, who we're still friends on Facebook. She'll probably see this. She was my stand-in friend for Friends Who Think You're Nuts. But it gave everybody on the panel a chance to get up in front of a live audience and, strap on the guitar and play. And that's the one I played.
oh my gosh.
That was
Amazing.
1990.
Amazing. That was 1990.
Yeah,
And here it is. Here it is
35
for the
years
rest of the
later.
world. The rest of the world can now hear
Yes. It's one
it.
of the songs that I've actually played over the years in my own shows, just me and the guitar, but I never recorded it. The first album, studio album, doesn't have that on it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting. Interesting. So let me take a step back and
sure.
first ask you this thing. Like, first, how do you describe who you are? Like, who you are, what made you who you are right now?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I think of myself first as a human, right? And not male or female, but human. And early on, I know I came into this world with a soul that had had experience. And so I defied every rule. Everybody that tried to tell me what I was supposed to do, I just didn't do it. And I think I chose the family I was in because they left me alone. I was the third of three kids. So
Mm,
they were done parenting, this generation of parents, babysitters, and they go on vacation without you, that sort of thing. So I got left alone, which is the perfect family for a young human that saw himself as an explorer of, what am I going to do? Who am I going to be? What are the choices I'm going to make? Because I'm not just going to take the ones that you tell me to make.
mm.
So how would you define that in just three words? A stubborn individualist, maybe, but yet still I understand that I want to be a part of the collective as well. I don't resonate with American, individualist culture. I like much more from your continent, India especially. You're from Pakistan, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
But in India, it's more of a collectivist culture. They have more respect for elders, and I really kind of like that idea. So does that answer your question?
It does, it does, it does. And it's interesting because you talked about soul,
Yeah.
right? Recently I heard that the people that are around are fragments of souls.
Right.
So there were souls, and then there were fragments of souls, and the people that you encounter and that you have relationships with are from the same soul, like original soul, but they're the fragments of that one original soul.
Ooh, I like that model. I would like that model a lot, and it kind of gives a different twist on the idea of a soul mate.
Hmm.
And because if you're five fragments joined, you have your one giant soul that's made of four others. Now, I
Yeah.
really resonated when I was traveling on the road playing my music full time with James Hillman's book, The Soul's Code,
Yeah.
where he talks about that the soul comes to the body, but it brings its experiences from the past. And that the metaphor that I use that I really loved is an acorn contains everything that an oak tree can be. And the
Mm.
soul comes with a code that the soul brings everything that it can be, which really, in my opinion, is infinite. You get to choose what you want to be. Like, unfortunately, culture doesn't give us a lot of permission to do that. Uh,
Yeah.
I really resonated with that, and I was reading a lot on the road, developing my ideas more of who am I now, right? Now
Mm.
I'm this, now I'm defining who I am as a musician and figuring out who am I as a man. And the reason why I got off the road is I was alone all the time. And, we're not here to have this journey by ourselves.
So talk about the first song that you ever wrote.
First song that I ever wrote would have to be Girl. It's on my first record, and it's also on the next record that's going to come out in this series. And I
Mm.
borrowed the story from my music partner, Randy Wright. God rest his soul, he's gone.
Mm.
But he had a girlfriend, and they was that common story about she wanted him to commit and wanted him to be a certain thing, and he wasn't ready to be that. He was still trying to figure it out. And I'm sorry if you think that I don't love you for causing tears to well up in your eyes, for all the things that I must do that are so unfair to you.
Mm.
And so it was the end of that relationship, and they parted, and it was painful for both of them. But that's a rite of passage when you're in your 20s. And
Right.
I hadn't been in a really serious relationship at that point. I hadn't gotten married the first time yet. So I had a high school sweetheart, and I ultimately did marry her, but I didn't have a relationship to write that about.
Mm.
So that kind of set the pattern for me in my life because I've been alone a lot to
Mm.
watch, listen, take notes, and then write about the experiences that I'm a witness to and imagine
Mm.
maybe myself being in that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And as you were writing that song, or I like describe the process of like when was the spark that ignited with you? You're like, I want to write this song.
Well, for that first song, it was the tears in her eyes when Randy broke
Mm.
up with her.
Okay.
Right. And I was like, oh, that's a universal experience right there. So I carried a notebook everywhere, and I still have that notebook. The paper is probably not holding together so good anymore. But that was my process early on, and you'll hear a lot of songwriters talk about this, that it's inspiration. Something happens in front of you or to you, or even inside of you, and you immediately stream it out. And the way I always put it is I didn't really write a lot of songs. They came through me. But
Hmm.
as we get older, that process changed because you develop craft skills. And speaking for myself, I didn't have that many like oh my God moments, but the world is infinite oh my God moments. So I just made careful notes on everything that I saw, and that's why you see the music later on in my career that I was writing in the early 2000s began to be big observations.
Mm.
One of the songs, which will be on one of the records, is called "Where Did We Come From?" And it was a challenge from a fellow writer. He said, all right, the challenge for the week is we're going to write a song about the origins of humanity. And I'm like, and what? How many verses do I get? You get 5 verses. So
And,
every,
and you know, and you know what's interesting about this, about the origin story, about you talking about all of this too? There's a
yeah,
couple things that come to mind. You know, that you said that songs don't come to me, they come through
come through
me.
me. Yeah,
Khalil Gibran talked about children not coming from you, coming through you.
absolutely.
That they're not about, and I feel like, like you talked about giving birth to this
Yes,
process,
yes.
to this process, and I think that that's really relevant and really valid. And in Elizabeth Gilbert's book Big Magic, she really talks a lot about that as well. That
Yeah,
that there are demons that live within you. And the demons are called genius. So the genius is not something that you are, but a genius is something that you have
that you
that
have with
resides
you.
within you, and that speaks to you. So you can't take full credit for anything that you do.
As I do
Whether it
not.
fails, whether
Yes.
it fails or whether it succeeds doesn't matter, because the genius has a part to play in it, and you
Yes.
have that genius who resides within you.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm a big Gibran fan.
Yeah.
Did a lot of reading of Gibran in the 70s. Love
Yeah.
is like a butterfly, and the more you chase it, the more it will elude you. Turn your attention to other things, and it comes and softly sits on your shoulder. In
Mm.
fact, that line right there, I'm glad you brought up Gibran, was the
Yeah.
inspiration to a song that's going to be on the third and fourth collections in this series called Love
Yeah.
Goes On.
Mm.
And there's some metaphorical stuff in there that Gibran was the source of the inspiration for that. So I'm excited to release those in the next coming weeks too.
So talk about this. So you have four collections turning out. So kind of take me through the process of what brought you to this place of choosing these four different genres
Yeah.
with these four different collections, and talk about that process, please.
Yeah. Well, it started with not worrying about this being about my voice. I get a lot of chatter from friends and on the internet that, oh, it's got to be, you've got to sing the song, you've got to sing the song. And as a songwriter, I'm not writing for me. I'm not writing for me at all. I hear someone else doing the song. And kind of the dream
Mm.
when I was in New York was to get other people to, write for other people. Well, when
Yeah.
that never happened, I wasn't going to stop writing. So, fast forward, I'm now older. I have some time on my hands, and I wanna make sure that those words are out there. So the process was, how can I order them in the genres and in the chronology, the song
Mm.
order? We're not
Mm.
doing that in the music business anymore. The albums are not created to be standalone. Taylor Swift is an exception. There's a lot of artists that are still doing it, but in the big money records are not about albums, it's about hits.
Hmm.
So I'm old school in that regard, and I've written so many songs that was my process. Arrange them in the order for at least two of the records that made sense, and the songs suggested themselves. It wasn't about me deciding which one was good or which one was bad. Well, the genre part was really exciting because with the AI tools we have available now, we can imagine a song very quickly to decide what do I've got to do to the lyric to make it fit into more of an R&B out of the pocket groove when I wrote it on the acoustic guitar with a straight 4/4 time, 8 bars, 8 bars and 8 bars and 4 bars. And so
Yeah.
I used the AI to say, okay, show me this lyric in this beat. And I then rewrite the lyric to take out syllables that didn't add value and got in the way of what that particular genre was wanting to do with the melody line. And that in itself, from a creative point of view, was very stimulating and became easier to write the lyrics
Mm.
after the fact, right? Just their
Mm.
rewrites. They didn't change the meaning of any of the songs. It just used different language and less or more language to fit the genre. So that was a really cool experience.
Interesting. So one of the things that I caught from a lot of that too, you're talking about the individual hit
Yeah,
versus the collective.
yeah,
And this is kind of what your philosophy of life is like, right? Like you're like, I'm not an individualistic as the general American is, I'm more of a collective. And
right.
so thinking about that makes a lot of sense that you would take who you are and bring it into the space of being a collaborative experience, which gets you to a point where you could not have done this on your own by yourself as an individual and create that individual one hit wonder or whatever that is
Right. Not without
versus
a
the
lot of money.
collective.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and even then, I mean, it's not just about the money, it's about the time, it's about the process,
Right.
it's about the investment of like, yourself, your energy, your mind, your brain, right? Like
Yeah.
you got all of these things. The more you have input from these different places and spaces, like you were talking about Khalil Gibran and everything and like getting that inspiration and moving through you
Yeah.
is not like, this is not you, this is coming through you, which
Right.
is a very big distinction in my mind.
Yeah. And I think that distinction is one of the things that put me in a place where I realized that what I was saying in the song when it came through me, I didn't fully understand it because it was totally from the self lens. I was writing it as the individual, either watching someone else experience it or imagining me experiencing it. But looking back on the lyrics, I'm like, this is way bigger than that. This is that actually, this means something entirely different. And I'll leave that for people to discover on their own. Because that's my wish, that people will pay attention to the words and latch on to the version that feels the way that will make them listen this day and age. You know, did I tell you that records, the third and fourth collection are going to be the same 10 songs?
No, no, you didn't tell me that. Yeah, so that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So it's good. So talk about that. Like, why did you do that, and what is that about in terms of like they're going to be the same
Yeah.
song, and yet they're going to be different, and it's going to be a
Yes.
totally different experience. So talk
It,
about that.
yeah, it wasn't the plan until I finished the first two records. The country one was a chronological life story from, you exuberant experimental relationships and bad behavior to falling in love, breaking up, getting back together, getting married, having a child, all through the chronologies of life. Finish that record. Okay, this is cool. Now I'm going to go do the heartstrings, I call it, which is more the acoustic guitar and very sensitive, introspective, outrospective, circumspective songs.
Hmm.
And that meant a lot to me because that was more like who I was when I was writing them. So I finished that one and then I'm like, wow, I have all these songs. And because I had iterated so many versions of every song using the tools, I
Hmm.
began to think in very excited ways about, well, what if I took the same exact song and did a rock and roll, like in your face, arena rock and roll version, and then do a dance floor, laser beams shooting, cool, hip version of the same exact song, nearly
Huh.
word for word. And I didn't know
Huh.
if it was going to be possible because a lot of my lyrics, there's a lot of words because it's trying to say a lot. But what I discovered, being older now, was that I could step back and say, okay, and I learned this long ago, but I didn't practice it enough. Throw away words that you can live without. The genius
Hmm.
is in the rewrite. George David Weiss, you don't know his name, I bet, but you know his music. He was the
Huh.
president of the Songwriters Guild, and he was a mentor of
Huh.
mine when I was in New York. He said, the
Huh.
genius is in the rewrite. Write it down, regurgitate it onto the page, but then go back and throw away the stuff that doesn't add any value and make room for more space between the words. And that's what happened with the second two records. The pop record and the dance record has less words but saying the same exact thing. And the melody
Hmm.
changes because there's less syllables to put in there. And that was so exciting for me to put it in, change it, iterate it, edit it. Sometimes I couldn't get exactly what I wanted, so I would do two or three versions and then pull it into Audacity and edit them together to
Hmm.
create my own master version. So just a warning, some of the
That's it.
songs are nearly 6 minutes long.
So okay, so there's so many different ways I want to go about this, but I want to talk about the geniuses in the rewrite, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The geniuses in the rewrite, and I want to take that line and talk through the process because one of the things that you told me when we had the pre-conversation was that you did 2,500 versions.
Yeah, so
You
far,
had
yeah.
you did so far,
Yeah.
approximately. Like again, like it. So talk me through the process, especially thinking about like the genius is in the rewrite. So what does that feel like? What does that look like? Especially starting right from the beginning and thinking about like when you started this, did you feel any hesitation or fear about reimagining or rethinking through these ideas by using AI?
Right. No, I didn't. In fact, I very easily could have gone there, but no fear, only excitement. Because
Mm,
again, I'm not doing this to make hit records. I'm doing
mm,
this to make sure that my words find ears in any way that I can. So
mm,
that's what made the use AI to reimagine it and be any singer that I can imagine. Right? I can be
mm,
a female dance floor diva pop star if I want to. Right? I
hmm.
can be a grizzled old beer drinking, whiskey shooting, gun slinging, spur wearing, uh, cowboy hat wearing. I can be anything I want. That is the power of the creativity for me is I don't have to be
Yeah.
limited to my own instrument. And I've got a decent instrument, but I'm not the greatest singer in the world. I'm a much better songwriter.
Okay, 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 wait, repeat that. I don't have to be limited to my own instrument.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't have to be limited
You
to my
don't
own
have to be
instrument.
limited. You don't have to be limited by who. you define yourself as or who you are in the eyes of other people. You can be whoever you want to be in this
Exactly.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep going, please. I just
The-
wanted to like, yeah.
you nearly quoted a line in "Leave It All Behind," which
Oh,
is
really?
track number 4.
So funny.
Yeah,
Oh
the
my
country
gosh.
country singer says, my boss says I'm doing very well. He gets himself a raise, but I get a pin for my lapel. I'm just
Uh,
another spoke within the wheel. I'm losing all control, and I don't like the way I feel. Leave it all behind. It will come
uh,
back to me, right? And that's what I'm doing with the original versions of the songs. I'm leaving it behind, but not
mm,
really. It's another version of that child. It's a unidentical twin
mm.
saying the same thing, but the vibe is different. The clothes are different. The hat's different. Different guitar, right? Different gender, even.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And so, okay, so in all of this, um, was there a moment when you heard the output and thought, this feels like me? Or, and if it did, what was that like? What was that moment like for you?
Yeah. I have to change it because it never felt like me. And the reason why is I've taken the me out of the sound of the song.
Mm,
I only wanted the me to be the words. But one of the things that I've been saying publicly a lot is I've been hearing artists in my mind doing my songs for decades. And
mm,
the tools were never available except to hire producers and musicians and book recording time. You could do the same thing. We mentioned that already. Time and money
yeah,
is
yeah.
prohibitive. And since I didn't want to be a star, I didn't think that much about it until the last couple of years. And then the tools began to become available. I think I got off track. Uh, the excitement of
Okay.
hearing it for the first time. Yes. So yes, when I finally hit an iteration that sounded like one of the voices that had been in my head
Uh-huh.
for years, I literally was dance. I have speakers in every room of the house, so I can stream whatever I'm listening to into the entire house. I just played the song and danced through the entire house and rejoicing at having met this person that only existed in my mind.
So the reimagine or this new person, you encountered a new human, a new version of this idea that you had in your head, and it was like it was, and you met this person.
Yeah, and
That
I've
is
even given
interesting.
them names. They're not on the record because there's no place to put them.
Uh-huh.
But I've given all the personas names, and they're plays
Interesting.
off my own, like Mason Firefield instead of Mark Firehammer, right? Marcy Sparks is another one. She does a really beautiful version of the first song you heard from me, of No Words to Say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So giving them names for me is special because I name everything that means something to me. When I was traveling on the road, my van, her name is Tilly. And
Mm,
she never let me down because I had a relationship with her. She wasn't a sentient human being, but she was matter and energy, and she was my magic carpet. I used to
mm.
laugh about driving down the highway. I put almost 400,000 miles on that van. I used to drive by new Cadillacs smoking on the side of the road. And here I am in my 82 Ford Econoline. Me, me.
She was an ascension human being, but she was matter and energy.
Yeah.
Talk more about that in this process.
Yeah. These new personas that have voiced my words are just energy. They're not matter.
Mm,
But I make them matter. I'm playing with the word, right? They matter and their energy. Instead of matter and energy, they matter and their energy. And the energy is the energy that I gave them through what came through my mind. If you're a Deepak fan, the field of pure potentiality, that's where I
mm,
think all the songs, for the most part, that I've written came from. There's
mm,
exceptions, like the writing exercises were not really that. It's craft, applying craft to a contest. Like there's 10 of us, and we're all going to try to write a song on the same
mm,
subject.
mm,
So
mm.
those weren't inspirational, but sometimes they produce some good results.
Uh, I could go into so many different ways in all of this, but one of the things that I wanted to really get your opinion on or your thoughts on is that, you know, there are people out there that are saying that this is not art, right?
Yeah.
There are people that are like saying that this does not value, that this not has no value. And what do you have to say to like because again, it's like, oh, this wasn't made by a human. This
Mhm.
wasn't created by, like, this wasn't sung by you. This wasn't, like, so they have all of these ideas of what things should look like.
Yeah.
And this looks different than potentially than what they think it should look like. So
Yeah.
what do you respond to them? How do you respond to them?
Yeah. It can be true that what some people are creating using AI is not art because they're not oftentimes bringing enough of themselves and of their own vision to the process. They have a shiny object. I can ask ChatGPT or whatever tool I'm using anything I want, and then they can buy into what they get back. So I'm with that argument, but the thing that I want to make clear is AI can be used as a paintbrush. If it's in my hand, I'm an artist. No one's going to argue that. I've been doing what I've been doing for all my life. And if people want to argue that, that's fine. I'll leave them to it. But I look at it as AI, if you have creative thoughts and you've organized those thoughts and you have a vision of what you want to create, it's just another tool in your tool belt, another brush in your, what do they call the thing that painters put all their brushes in? I think there's a name for it.
There is a name for it.
A
Yeah,
brush
I'm
holder.
missing it. A brush holder. There you go. Love
I think
it.
it's a le brush holder.
Le brush holder.
Yeah. So I do not poo-poo on AI for art, but I will immediately recognize when what something has been created isn't. If it doesn't have any soul and it doesn't speak to you, it takes more than just a cool beat and nice sounds to, in my opinion, really rise to the level of art that, and I will define art in my words, art moves you in a way that changes you perhaps forever. If not in the moment, perhaps forever. And in my musical life, there have been moments that changed me forever, that led to a song that was a reminder of what changed in me and what perhaps I let go of and replaced with something new, because the universe abhors a vacuum. You can't get rid of something and not fill the space with something else, because the thing that you got rid of will just come right back again. So that, I think that art for me is has that role, that it can help people have a better life and change their mind about things that perhaps don't serve them, but they've really got to listen to the words.
So the way that I think about a lot of this too is that AI does not have emotions,
Yeah.
but AI created art can make you feel something.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about how the human feels
Right.
rather than the process in which it was created.
Right. Would you agree that if you see AI art that made you feel something, the prompt must have had some human experience and intention to create a response in the prompt?
One of the things that I know for sure
Yeah.
is that if there is a piece of art that was created, it wasn't done, it probably wasn't done by just one prompt.
Right. Oh,
It might have started with a prompt. It might have started, like, and then the iteration of it,
yes.
right? Again, curating is going to be part of this process a little bit more.
Yeah. The whole prompt growing and growing and growing. The cover art for all four of these records is a product of literally thousands of words and a back and forth conversation with
Yes.
the Dolly portion of ChatGPT. And what I love that you just said is AI doesn't have emotions, but it acts as if it does. I mean, I think I showed you one of the transcripts where I said, "Oh, I like where
Yes.
you're going with that," after I gave this very verbose prompt. And I said, "But what do you think about this idea if we move this here and then add this color, this texture?" And it comes back with, like, oh my gosh, that's an amazing idea. I think we can do that. Let me give you a moment. I'm going to think about it for a minute, and then I'm going to tell you what my idea is and tell me what you think. And it comes back with a new description of what it's going to try to do for me. And then I either say, yeah, let's do that, or make a tiny adjustment. And I think I probably have, I don't know, 10,000 words in the four covers that represent the four different collections in Artists Imagined.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. Sorry, there was a little emergency that I had to take care of, but I'm good now.
Okay.
You know, one of the things that I wanted to also like, kind of think about in all of this is if this project, right, had a single message or emotional takeaway that you wanted to give for listeners, right? What would that be for them?
That's a good question. And I think it has to be that there isn't any one choice for anything in life.
Hmm,
And this, as an art project, is proof of that. But if found in the lyrics is also moments where a character in the story realizes I can make another choice. I don't have to be unhappy. I don't have to feel this way. I can make another choice. I think that's the takeaway for me is
hmm,
you have infinite choices. And ultimately, your experience is a product of the choices that you make.
totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Great question.
Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to do all of this, to hang out, to create this thing. I mean, it was about maybe a couple weeks ago that we first had the chat where we
January
reconnected.
3rd. January
And
3rd.
then, and from January 3rd to now we're at the 19th or 18th is when, like, so
16 days. Yeah.
16 days. Like,
Yeah. There's only three tracks left to master, and then I'm done.
and it's wild to be able to think about how this can be such an accelerant for anything,
I like that word.
because if you think about how much time, effort, money would have gone into doing this without having used the tools that you have available to you
Right.
right now, like if you
Right.
were to have done this 10 years ago, I would love for you to invest maybe 5 or 10 minutes thinking about that and coming up with an amount of time that would have taken you to do that versus do this. Just do a little thought experiment. You don't have to do it right now, obviously,
Yeah,
but
no, I got it.
I'd love to get the comparison of those numbers.
Yeah, well, given that I've already recorded two records, it's not going to take me long to come up with the number.
I'd love to see that mathematical equation.
Next conversation. We'll do that in the next conversation. Adnan,
Totally,
I
totally.
appreciate your time, and I just want to just acknowledge what you're about to do. You're heading off to a very exciting opportunity, the biggest tech event in the world, 300,000 people in attendance. You're doing the keynote, right?
I'm doing one of the keynotes. Yes, yes. I've got my new book out called AI Culture Shift,
Can't wait to get the audio
which,
version.
yeah, yeah. My co-author Brian and I wrote this, and again, there's a portion in the book called "How We Wrote This Book," and actually, you're going to be one of the first people to know that my 11-year-old and I published our first novel together, and it's
Nice.
live on Amazon this morning. This morning it went live.
Oh, well,
I just
send
found
me
out
the
about it
link.
about, I will.
I'll put it
I
in the
will.
comments. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's the Kindle version is available right now, and the
Awesome.
ebook version, and then the physical version will be coming out in the next 24 hours or so.
Cool. Well, thank you again, Adnan. Have a safe journey. We'll see you when you get back.
All right, looking forward to it. Looking forward to caring more. I'm really excited about the next 30. All
On the
right.
way.
All right, Mark. Have a good one. Take good care. Be well,
You
and
too.
thank you.
Take care.